Shalom, shalom. So, picking back up in our New Testament studies, we are going to look at honor and shame. Honor and shame. But before we get into that, let's get a little bit more background. And this is from the N.T. Wright, and it's the New Testament in its world. Great scholar, great scholar. So, I want to pick up in chapter 7 on page 142, which speaks about the Greco-Roman context of the early church. Hellenistic culture and Roman Empire. But first, it says, they, the Romans, ransacked the world, and afterwards, when all the land has been laid waste by their pillaging, they scour the sea, they plunder, they murder, they rape in the name of their so-called empire. And where they have made a desert, they call it peace. So, Hellenistic culture and Roman Empire. When we reach the first century, the Eastern Mediterranean is culturally Greek, but politically dominated by the Roman Empire. The conquest of Alexander the Great had led to a proliferation of Greek language, learning, and civilization. Places like Egypt, the Balkans, Asia Minor, Syria, Palestine, and the Fertile Crescent were all Hellenized to varying degrees. This does not mean, of course, that all prior customs and local traditions just vanished. Some Greek culture did display certain aspects of life, but more often than not, it brought old customs to new expressions. Indigenous forms of art, architecture, religion, and language did not die out. They were caught up in the larger and complex world of Greek culture. That culture did indeed take over, but the many other local cultures, far from vanishing, blended to create a wealth of hybrid cultural expressions. This ability to fuse cultures together explains why Hellenization prevailed and became as powerful as it did. The primary instrument of Hellenization was language. Greek became the lingua franca of the ancient world and remained dominant for centuries, even after the Latin speaking Romans had gained overall power. Many residents of Rome itself spoke Greek as their first language. The great early work of the church father Irenaeus in southern France was written in his native Greek. Greek was, for the most part, the universal language of trade, government, the military, philosophy, and religion. It is no surprise that the Jewish scriptures, beginning with the Torah or Pentateuch, were translated into Greek, probably as early as the middle of the second century BC. This was the Bible for the Greek speaking Jews of the diaspora and for most early Christians or early believers in Yeshua. The widespread usage of Greek enabled trade and cultural interaction on a scale that the Mediterranean world had never experienced before. The second instrument of Hellenization was the polis or city state. As the Greeks conquered regions, they established colonies with a Greek way of life. Here, the Greek polis was the political, economic, educational, religious, and social hub of a civilization. Why is that important? And it's important for us to get background, especially when reading the Brit Hadashah, New Testament, or Apostolic Scriptures, because of the cultural differences that the apostles and Shaul were dealing with once they started moving out and spreading the Bessarah, or the gospel, to the nations. So, honor and shame. Honor refers to the public acknowledgement of a person's worth granted on the basis of how fully the individual embodies qualities and behaviors valued by the group. Sorry, this is the Dictionary of the New Testament background. This is the resource I'm using here. We're going to be using a whole bunch of different resources for this, the same way that we did for the patron and client. First century Mediterranean people were oriented from early childhood to seek honor and avoid disgrace, meaning that they would be sensitive to public recognition or reproach. Where different cultures with different values existed side by side, it became extremely important to insulate one's own group members against the desire for honor or avoidance of dishonor in the eyes of outsiders. Since only by doing, since only by so doing could one remain wholly committed to the distinctive culture and values of the group. This struggle is particularly evident in the New Testament as church or ecclesia or assembly leaders seek to affirm the honor of Christians or early believers in Yeshua on the basis of their adherence to Yeshua while insulating them from the disapproval they face from non-believing or non-believing Jews who did not believe in Yeshua and Gentiles alike. So this is just a quick introduction to honor and shame. And if you think about this, you start thinking about 4QMMT, community halakha, all these things start to play a part when it comes to honor and shame. Shalom, shalom.